Hello, and welcome to CHY 113 at the University of Southern Maine. I am Professor Staples, and I will be your instructor for this semester. I wanted to send out this video a little bit early before classes began so that you could get an idea for how things were going to go, because I don't know about you, but this is the first time that I have done a completely online chemistry course, and so it's going to be a little bit different. I will say that for many of you, I'm sure, learning chemistry online is probably not your ideal situation. It's not what you were looking for. And to be honest, it is not the way that I would choose to teach chemistry. However, with our current situation, in order to allow as many students as possible to actually take the course, this was the best option, was for one of us, either Dr. Tracy or I, who was teaching the other section, to offer an online version. Without doing so, we would not have been able to meet the demand for the course. And so here we are, taking online chemistry. And so let's talk a little bit about how things are going to go. And so this is an asynchronous online course, meaning that you do not have to log in at specific times to watch the lectures. I will be sending an email and posting lectures twice a week. My goal is to do those Tuesdays and Thursdays by noon, and so which would have been our regularly scheduled class times. But you will be able to watch those at your convenience. Personally, I would recommend that you set aside time to watch those every week and get yourself into a schedule and don't let yourself fall behind. But there's no requirement for you to watch the lectures at any specific time. They will be available online for you at a time that works out for you. Homework, on the other hand, will have specific due dates, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. But pretty much every Sunday by midnight, you will have homework that's due. And we will have 3 exams and the final, and those have to be taken on specific days. And those days will be on the schedule, which we'll see in just a little bit. But other than your assessments, you're free to learn on your own schedule and to access things at a time that works out for you. And so speaking of homework and exams, all of your assessments are going to be on a website called Chem 101. In my opinion, it is one of the most user-friendly chemistry homework platforms out there. And so it's the one that I've chosen to use for this course. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. That will be your only expense for the course. Honestly, I forget off the top of my head how much it is, but it's not a lot in comparison to some other homework platforms. And as far as a textbook, I do use an open source online text. And so there won't be a text that you have to buy. There is a print version available if you want to buy it, but you will be able to access everything you need right online as far as your textbook. And so let's take a look at a couple of things to start out. So first of all, let's just take a look at Brightspace. So here's a landing page. This should look fairly close to your landing page for Brightspace. Honestly, I am not going to use Brightspace for a lot this semester. I have had a pretty good Google site all set up for my course, and I think that it's more user-friendly both for me and for you than Brightspace is at this point. And so most everything is going to go through that site. However, if you do go to Brightspace, you can find things such as the actual website for the class. And so you can click on that, which will bring you to the link. Clicking the link brings you to our course website, which we will be talking a little bit more about in a bit. You can also see on the Brightspace page for the class, the course schedule. Again, a link to it because I do pretty much everything in a Google Doc environment. So you'd see the schedule for the class right here. Again, we'll be talking much more about this in a little bit in this video. And you can also find the syllabus for the course. And so pretty much what I'm going to use Brightspace for are those basic course elements, the website, syllabus, and the schedule. I will also use Brightspace for grade reporting. So even though all of your assessments are going to be on Chem 101, and so you'll have access to your grades using that website, Brightspace will also catalog all the grades for you on a platform that you will be probably using for a lot of other classes. And Brightspace will keep a running tally of your grades going for you at the same time. But that's really all I'm going to use Brightspace for. And so instead, let's take a peek a little bit more at the actual course website, which we will be using quite a bit. So here's our website for the class. Just note, like this note says here, this website is still under construction and nothing should be considered final quite yet. We are only a week away from classes starting, and so really the website's pretty close at this point. So is the schedule and the syllabus, which also have notes sort of like this. But I will be tinkering with some things in the week to come as we get ready. And so things might change a little bit, but realistically, we're probably pretty close to where things are going to be. And so this is just the front page of our website here. We have the course description that we're going to be learning about chemistry. Normally, and most of you are probably also taking Chem 114, which is the lab that's associated with the course. And note that Math 108 or Math 140, either college algebra or pre-calculus, are requirements for the course too, either as a pre or a co-requisite. Statistics, Math 120, is not an acceptable substitute. We will be doing a fair bit of math in this course, a fair bit of algebraic manipulation, and studies, as well as the personal experience of everyone in our chem department, says that if you don't have that math background, you will not be successful. And so that is a requirement to be able to take our class because we want you to succeed. As far as required materials for the course, like I mentioned, we will use an online textbook. Here's one link to it here. We'll see in a little bit where you can also get links to the textbook. So we can see the text here in our table of contents, all the different chapters and sections. And so if we're looking at things about writing and balancing chemical equations, for instance, section 4.1, just click there, and there it is. Now note too, like I said, there is a print version of the book available through Amazon. You can see that I bought myself a version last December. Looks like right now, there are some hardcover versions available. I think it's pretty popular right now. It's like there's a used version of the print copy for $120. There's a paperback version available, which isn't available for a little bit. Like I said, I think this is probably pretty popular right now. A lot of people are using OpenStax. You can see I do have a print version of it myself. Pretty decent text. Looks like any other chemistry textbook or any other textbook that you've ever seen. So for those of you who don't like all of your books right online, there is an option for you to purchase an actual print copy of the textbook. You can also download a Kindle app. And so I might advise that for some of you who maybe don't have reliable internet access all the time at home. If you do have some way to download a Kindle app, either onto a Kindle or an app or iPad, some other tablet, then you can certainly download the Kindle app and have the book right there. So if you don't have internet access, you've still got a copy of the textbook available for you. And then Chem 101, we'll be talking about that a little bit more in a little bit. But you can find the sign up instructions right here as far as how you would actually sign up for it. Two ways to sign up. You can either sign up directly through the website, which honestly I find a little bit easier, just following all the instructions here. You can also go through the campus bookstore. Some of you I know, due to financial aid package reasons, have to purchase all of your materials through the bookstore. And so you can do that right through our online bookstore as well. You will need a scientific calculator. If you don't necessarily need one, like the nice big expensive TIs, if you have one like this, that's great. You can definitely use that. If you don't want to spend the money for that, or you don't have one like that, anything that says scientific calculator is absolutely fine. You just need to be able to use scientific notation. Some of you might be saying, well, since this is all online, can I just use my computer or use my phone or my tablet calculator? And you can. And so your computer calculator would look something like this. iPad calculators and iPhone calculators look a little bit different, but what you're looking for is this EE, or exponential notation, or scientific notation. Might look a little bit different depending on the type of platform you're using. Might be EXP or times 10 to the n, something like that. But if I'm, for instance, inputting Avogadro's number, then I would input 6.023 EE is times 10 to the 23rd. So you can use your computer or other electronic device for your scientific calculator. Personally, I recommend just buying the calculator, a little bit easier, a little less cumbersome, and you can just have it right in front of you as you're working. And other things that we find on the website, and we've got a link to the class syllabus. There it is there. Open it in its own window if we want. We'll talk more about the syllabus and go through that in a minute. We also have on that landing page the course schedule. Again, we'll be talking about the schedule quite a bit as well. We'll talk about these study skills in this guide you're communicating with your professors. Then we have all the different sections up here, again, which we will be talking about. But it's, even when I'm teaching this course live and face-to-face, this website is the hub for the class. This is the central location where you would go for everything. And so that's especially more true considering what we have going on this semester. We're all online. So this is going to be where you come for pretty much everything. And so familiarize yourself with this site. Get used to it. Get used to where to find things, and really just play around on here and see what it has for information and where you go for various things. And so let's go through the syllabus just a little bit. And so we talked about the course and the requirements. We talked about the required materials. A couple of optional materials, that essential algebra, if you struggle with math, that will help you out. Survival guide, giving you some general tips for general chemistry, that will help you out as well. A model kit, some people find for especially a later unit when we start talking about molecular shapes, that model kits really help you visualize the 3 dimensions of various molecules. If you are in a field where you're going to be going on to organic chemistry, then you would absolutely want a model kit for that course. And so you might find it useful to buy one now, but it's certainly not something that you would absolutely need. Learning outcomes, you can take a peek through. Talked about the course format a little bit. Like I said, it's asynchronous online, so no formal meetings. Everything's going to be conducted online, including my office hours. Currently, my office hours are scheduled for Tuesday, I believe from 1 to 3. I can't remember for sure, I'd have to look at that. But also some hours Friday morning, I think from 9 to 11. And what I'll be doing with those is sending out a link just prior to the scheduled hours. And so if you're looking for some extra help, just log on to that link and we can chat and try to help you out. If those times don't work out for you, then certainly send me an email and we'll try to find a time that works for you to get some help. And so let's see, how are you going to be assessed in here? Homework. Like I said, you're going to have homework every single week. It's going to be on the Chem 101 app and website. Due dates can be found there, but also on the course schedule. But like I said, pretty much every Sunday night, you're going to have homework due. I will not extend deadlines pretty much for any reason, including computer malfunction. If you send me an email 10 o'clock on Sunday night and say, Professor Staples, computer died, I can't do my homework, what do I do? It's going to sound like I'm a jerk, but I'm going to say, tough luck. In a course like this, you've got to plan ahead. You've got to anticipate that things are going to happen. Excuse me a minute. And so plan for things like that. Don't wait until the last minute to do your homework or to take your exam on exam days. And so plan accordingly. With that in mind, I do know that life happens and that things do get in the way from time to time, including maybe a legitimate computer malfunction. And so the 2 lowest homework scores will be dropped. You are going to have 12 homework assignments total, and only 10 of those are going to be graded. You're going to have 3 unit exams, and you can see that those make up the bulk of your grade. Almost half of your grade is going to be these 3 unit exams. Exams are also going to be on Chem 101. You can see the dates on the schedule. You can take the exam anytime on that assigned day, and you have 2 hours to start the exam from the time you begin. Now that's not 2 hours of logged in time. So you can't start it, work for a half hour, go away for 3 hours, come back and work for another half hour. You can't do that. Once you start that test, you have 2 hours. So if you start that test at 12 noon, you must be finished it by 2 p.m. And again, same with homework. I will not extend time. I will not allow you to do it, to take the exam on an alternate day for any reason, including computer or network malfunction. If you do miss an exam or totally bomb one, because I do, like I said, I know that life happens, things get in the way, then I will replace that exam by 10 points less than the average of the other 2. And so for instance, let's say exam 1, you get a 75. Exam 2, something happens, your car breaks down that week, your dog gets sick, whatever, life happens. You can't prepare for the test, you're a mess on the day that you take it, you get a 30. Exam 3, back to sort of normal, you get a 75 on exam 3 as well. And so exams 1 and 3, with an average of a 75, subtract 10 brings you to a 65. That 30 you got on exam 2 is going to be replaced by the 65. And so with this policy, this allows for things to happen and not completely kill your grade if something happens to one exam. And so for this reason, there are no makeup exams allowed for any reason. And so like I said, if you just completely miss one, then that missed exam, the score will be replaced by the average of the other 2 minus 10. Then the final exam will also be on Chem 101. The date is out for the final exams. I honestly forget what it is. I looked at it, but I don't remember. But I'll have that posted certainly well before the exam takes place. And the same as the other exams, there'll be a day and you'll have a couple hours to complete the final exam on that day. We'll talk a little bit more about class success and how to do well in this class, but one of the things that you really just have to recognize is that chemistry in general is a course where you really have to take ownership of it yourself. You have to recognize that as much as it is my job to teach you, really my job is more to facilitate how you learn and facilitate your learning of the material. It is your job to learn it. You have to take ownership of that. I'm here to help you, but it is your responsibility to learn the material in any way you can. And so we'll be going through some more features of the website and some more resources for you to show you what is out there and what I have provided for you to help you succeed in the class. For instance, in each of the unit objectives, you'll have a breakdown of the tasks that you should complete. You'll have copies of all the lecture slides, which form the basis of the lectures that I record, some supplemental videos, extra practice, all sorts of things. And so you have all these resources. It's your job to use them. That's especially true in this online environment. It's, I don't know how to really say this, but it's just, there's so much more put on you in this environment and taking responsibility for learning this material and for being an active participant in your own learning. And so just keep that in mind as we go forward. Piazza we'll be talking about a little bit more, but Piazza is a tool and a website for discussions for you to be able to get answers to things from your classmates. And so it'll just be a great resource that we can use through the course. And then some other stuff in the syllabus here. You can certainly ask me about anything that you'd like, but the rest of this is more university and course policy information. And so take a look through that. Certainly email me any questions that you might have regarding the syllabus and whatnot. Let's take a look at our schedule. So this is a schedule for the entire semester. As you can see, for instance, the first week of classes, these are the topics that we're going to be looking at. And you can see for each topic what sections you should be reading. You'll also see what sections you should be reading in the objectives and the tasks, and we'll talk about that. As I record and post lectures, those lecture links will be right here. For instance, after this video is done and recorded and I have the link for it, you will see the link for this video right here and sort of this course introduction. And your homework due dates every week here on the side. Note that homeworks by and large are all due Sundays by midnight. with the exception of the final assignment. I did not want to extend that into getting closer to finals week. And so your last homework assignment is due on Friday, the very last day of classes. And we'll talk more about how you can use the schedule in a little bit, but one thing to note is that each of these links, and so for instance, September 7th, the week of September 7th, we're looking at these two major topics. Click on the link and it brings you right to that topic in the website with all the tasks that you should be doing. And so we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But that is our schedule, so you always know what is coming up and what we're doing. You can see exam dates here as well. I was able to arrange the schedule so that in the week of exams, with the exception of the last one, but for the first two exams, I don't have anything else in that week. And so you will have no new information presented for that entire week. So that gives you a chance to catch up and to practice and to study. And so let's take a look. Let's take a look at Piazza, actually. So we can see Piazza. You can link to it here. You can also just go to the Piazza website if you like, but it looks the exact same. And so, for instance, if you had a question, I've already posted one here because I was playing with it a little bit earlier. But let's say you had a question that you wanted to post, and I'll probably set up some other folders to try to organize this a little bit more. Let's say we're in the first unit still, and you have a question. Make sure to post it over to questions so that people can answer it. Let's say you have a question on atomic structure, and you want to know how to find the number of neutrons in a particular element. And so there's your summary, your number of neutrons. You're going to post your question, maybe how do you know how many neutrons are in, for an example, carbon-14. Now, I obviously don't expect you to know the answer to this yet. This is one of the things that we're going to be learning. And so you can send an email notification if you want to. Actually, I'd have to look. I'm not sure if you have the ability to do that as students. I do. I can blast out an email to all of you on this, but I'm not sure what yours looks like. But essentially what this is going to do, you're going to post your question. Oh, select at least one folder. We're going to put this into general questions. So you're going to post your question, and then it's going to show up in our questions over here. And so there's a couple of different places to put some answers. One, you'll notice that there will be a slot for my answer. So when I see this, I will put out an answer, hopefully, that everyone can then see. But there'll also be a section for student answers. And this is, I think, where the real power of Piazza starts to come in. Because as you can imagine, I'm a fairly busy person. And if you email me a question, I'll get to it as soon as I can. But that might not be soon enough to really help you out depending on what you're working on. Piazza is a great way for your classmates to help you out. Somebody else will hopefully know the answer to the question and will be able to post that in here. I will, of course, be monitoring it. And so if I see something that somebody answered that's incorrect, I'll let you know. But it is a chance for some discussion to happen and for you to talk amongst each other about certain things that come up, and for you to get some answers more quickly than you might if you were just emailing me. It's also a chance for everyone to see what your question is. If you have a question, if you have this question in particular, how do you know how many neutrons are in carbon-14? And you just email me, then that's just a discussion between you and me about that. Nobody else can benefit from that. I guarantee somebody else in the class has the same question. Somebody else in the class is wondering, how the heck do you actually do this? How do you find this number of neutrons? By using Piazza and having the discussion out in the open so that everyone can see it, everybody benefits from seeing that answer. And so it just really opens things up to be able to get a lot of some of the discussion, especially in this online format, since we're not going to be in class. You know, normally we might be in class, somebody would throw this question out there, I'd answer it, everybody hears it. We don't have that option. And so this is a good way to be able to get those questions out there for everyone to see. If you're not comfortable with people knowing that you're asking a question, there is an option to post these anonymously. And so you can just choose to post anonymously. Nobody's going to know that you're asking the question. And so I hope that this becomes a really good resource that you all utilize and get some really good sort of discussions and some good question and answer going. I will be monitoring it as much as I possibly can and putting my answers out there so that people can see my answers to things. But even if it's not course content, even if it's just sort of general questions about whatever associated with the course, go ahead and put it on here, and hopefully somebody knows the answer. I think that's it about it as far as Piazza goes. Okay, let's go back to our general landing page here. Let's talk a little bit about what a typical lecture is going to look like. And so in a typical lecture, let me go ahead, let me actually bring up something for maybe a PowerPoint slide. Actually, you might see in some of the lectures, by the way, you might see a quick pause in the recording and a little bit of a glitch. Something like that, where I pause the recording in order to set some things up or to do something on the screen, or just maybe my cat wandered in or my baby started to cry and that's how I had to deal with something. But so you may see some of those pauses from time to time in the video, and so just be aware of that. But so again, where was I? I was bringing up one of my lectures, meant to do that during the pause, forgot. Let's just bring something up here. Maybe we're looking at our structure of the atom. Oops. That's what I wanted to do. Okay. So most lectures are going to pretty much be like this. This would normally be the PowerPoint, for instance, that I would have up behind me if we were in the big lecture hall in the science building. And so we'd have the PowerPoint going. I'd be talking to you about some things, looking at some subatomic particles here, explaining all this, talking about what atomic mass is all about, looking at the structure of the atom, looking at our nucleus here with our protons and our neutrons and all of our electrons here on the outside. And so I'd be talking about all this. And so I'm going to have the lecture, the PowerPoint up like this. You can see me off to the side as well. So you'll still see me taking my motions, doing my talking, you know, just like maybe we were in the class. And there will be several times as well when, just like if we were in the class, when I would be giving examples of something up on the board, maybe some sort of equation that we're working with. And so I will also have, and I will just move over to it, our little whiteboard here. And so let's say, for instance, we're working with our light equations, which is something that we're going to be working with a fair bit in the course. And so if we know, for instance, that we have a certain wavelength of light equal to, we'll just throw something out there, maybe 6.2 times 10 to the -7th meter wavelength. And we want to know what the frequency of that wave is. So we would use our light equation, C equals lambda, oops, sorry. C equals lambda times frequency. So we know that frequency is C over lambda. C is the speed of light, equal to 3 times 10 to the 8th meters per second, divided by our wavelength. And then we can put that into our calculator. Don't worry if you have no idea what I'm writing here and that looks like utter gibberish. It probably should look like utter gibberish to you at this point. It's just an example of again, if we were talking about this topic, this would be something that I would be putting up on a whiteboard or on the board behind me, showing you an example of how to do a calculation. And so in our online format here, I'm just going to use this my tablet with the whiteboard, and we'll be looking at examples that way. And so I would have given you the example, and then we would move back to continue going on through the lecture. Now there may be times, just to note, that I'm going to want both the whiteboard and the PowerPoint up at the same time. And so things might look a little bit more like this. I only bring that up to say that you can see that now things are starting to get a little small on the screen. And so For the most part, I probably wouldn't recommend watching the lectures on a phone or a tablet just because of that scale factor, that size factor of things that you're going to be looking at. If you are watching this on a tablet and you can see this perfectly fine, or on your phone, then that's great. Awesome, that's going to work for you. But that's just something to keep in mind, is that probably most of these, your best viewing is going to be on a bit of a larger screen, just because some of these, especially when I'm giving some examples like this, some of these can maybe start to get a little small. But that's going to be a typical lecture. It is going to be, again, me sort of going through our PowerPoints like I normally would, and talking about everything, giving some examples. I quite often, when I teach live, have students work out examples during class. And so there may be times when I say, okay, now something like this, actually this worked out perfectly and I didn't even intend to do this. But I might throw this question up on the slide here. And then I might say, okay, now pause the video, try to answer this question. I would really recommend doing that, because if we were in a live face-to-face class, that's where I'm going to stop talking for a couple minutes and I'm going to let you work on this. I'm going to let you figure it out. I'm going to let you talk to your neighbor and try to see if you can come up with an answer. And so I really recommend that you actually approach it like we are in class, that you pause the video, try to come up with your answer, and then restart it. Oh, and I thought that I gave the answer here, but I didn't. I'd have to look to the following is true. Oh, luckily, periodic table right behind me. And the answer is C. So congratulations if you got that. So yeah, I would really approach as you're watching these just like we're in class. Just sort of pretend that we're really all still there. And so that's what a lecture is going to look like for the most part. And so, like I said, every week twice weekly, I'm gonna be sending out those emails with what the week's lesson is all about. Those emails won't be real extensive because you're going to have most of it in the lecture. It's really more of a way to sort of keep us going, keep us on track. But the other thing that you should be doing is, again, let's come back to our schedule here. And so let's say, for instance, we are deep into Unit 1. We're in our 3rd week of classes, and we're looking at this topic here. So this would be September 15th, and I'd be sending this out for this lesson. And so this is all about the mole. And so you can go right from the schedule. You can see that if you click onto the link, that brings us to what the objectives are for that particular lesson. And we can see the objectives here: explain the concept of the mole and use molar mass, derive some compound formulas, percent composition, empirical formulas, calculating molarity. We'll talk about these letters here in a little bit. Don't worry about that for now. And so then you see, for instance, here for objective 1. So here's the objective. This is just the same thing as up here, but explain the concept of a mole. These are the things that you should do in order to master that objective. First, read the appropriate section in the book. I'm sorry, these tasks are obviously in addition to watching the lecture and paying attention to what I'm saying in there. But you should read that appropriate section in the book, and this link will bring you right to the appropriate sections to read. So there's your textbook link, and there is that section with a lot of different examples. When you have examples like these too in the book, work them. That's why they're here. And so you've got this example. Here's a question. So try to work that. Depending on where you're at with your learning in that unit, you may or may not have a clue, but then it gives you the solution and shows you how they actually go about it. And so work those, do those as you read. That will help you learn this material. And then you can see the other task is to watch this course video, Moles and Molar Mass. So a couple different ways you can see these videos. One is, again, click on it right here from the tasks. It's going to bring you to the YouTube link. And here's a video. So these are a series of videos that I made a year or so ago that are really the same things that I talk about in lecture, the same things that will be on your lecture videos, but it breaks it down into a little bit smaller chunks. and I give more examples in some of these than I do in the lecture videos. And so they're just some other supplemental information, supplemental videos to help you learn the material. And you can see that so that's just for objective 1. Then we have objective 2, the task to read that section, some reading here. And so these would be all the tasks that you should complete for that particular lesson. You might already be seeing that this is time consuming, and it is. To succeed in chemistry, plan on spending a lot of time. That's just another reality, is it will take you time to work in order to be successful in this course. It's going to take a lot of time. And so know that to start out. The other thing that you can see in each unit are the materials. So here in Unit 1, for one thing, we've got all of our various lecture slides here. And so you can go through and look at the slides just on their own if you find that helpful. All the different videos broken down by objective. Some various informational handouts you can find there. The other big helpful thing that you'll find are these extra practice worksheets. These are nothing that are graded, nothing I'm ever going to want you to turn in or collect, anything like that. They're just simply practice for things that we're working on. And so let's say, actually from what we were just looking at, from the mole. Here's some good practice here. You click on the link for the practice, it brings you to a worksheet with just lots and lots of different mole calculations to practice on. And so do those. And then you've got the answer key. I'm not used to talking this much for a while. And so you've got your key there with all the answers that you can go through and check. You should be working a lot of these practice problems before you ever attempt the Chem 101 homework. We'll talk more about Chem 101 actually coming up right after this, but there is a penalty for incorrect answers. And so when you're doing the homework, that should not be the first time that you are encountering these problems. You should be doing this practice ahead of time before you start your actual homework. And so with that said, let's now take a look at the Chem 101 site. And so this homework tab on the web page, and this brings you to some sort of general information about the homework, which we've already talked about. Some of the policies, like I said, lowest 2 will be dropped. You are to work on these individually. You are not to work on homework collaboratively or as a group. You will have 3 attempts for any multiple choice questions. On average, some of these may change depending on the particular problem. But for multiple choice questions, you'll have 3 tries, and you'll have 5 tries for any questions in which you're providing your own answer. 10% will be deducted for every wrong answer. So again, that's where I recommend that you work those practice problems before you ever try the Chem 101 homework. Because if you're getting things wrong when you're working in Chem 101, if you're just learning how to do it there, you're going to get penalized for wrong answers. So let's take a look at the Chem 101 website. And so this, again, walks you through how to create your own account. And so you can either do it directly through the website or through the campus bookstore, either way. Then it's going to bring you here, and this is our class, but let me actually bring up, oh wait, no, sorry, this is last semester. That's the spring, that's what I want. So this gives you an idea for what it's going to look like for you. So let's say we are in, and let me actually view this as a student. This will look like what you are going to see. And so here's homework 9. So you're working here on homework 9, and this is generally what it's going to look like. And so we have, for instance, some multiple choice type questions, like light wave A has greater frequency than B, which has the greater wavelength. So you can choose your answer. You're not typically going to see this show answer. This is only showing up because the assignment has already been due, because this was last spring. But after the assignment is due, you will be able to go back if you want and see these if you want to go back and look at things for some refresher or for some practice, which I would recommend. Then you could click Show Answer. And you can see the answer here is B, and it tells you why. Gives you some solutions as to why, some reason as to why that answer is what it is. Other questions in which you're going to have to actually submit the answer yourself. And so you're going to run this calculation. The photon has this frequency. What is the energy? And so you're going to put whatever it is. And this isn't the actual answer. I'm just doing for this, for example, or some scientific notation, maybe 5.2 times 10 to the 14th. Something like that. And then when it is all done, you would see your be able to see your scores and your points earned. Some questions are worth more than others. Most of the calculation questions, for instance, are worth, forget if I did, let's see, what did I do? Not on that sheet. Where did I put it? Oh well. But basically your calculations and things that you have to actually sit there and calculate and work out or input the answers yourselves, those questions are worth more than multiple choice questions. But this is what the website looks like. Your exams are actually going to be under this category of quizzes. The app just doesn't have an exam section. So they'll be here under the quizzes. And so you would see the quiz listed here. Our time limits were 1 hour, were different from what yours are going to be. I'm going to impose time limits of 2 hours for your course. But again, it's the same thing. You would start it, and once you start, you would have 2 hours to go through all of it and answer your questions. And so that's what Chem 101 will look like. Okay. Much more to say there. What else did I want to talk about today? So there's a few other things on the website. And so when I send out, for instance, those twice weekly emails, you will receive it as an email. I use a Google group to organize everything. And so you'll receive the email, but if you wanted to go back and look at it later, if your inboxes are anything like mine, things are going to get lost pretty quickly. And so all of those Google group emails that are sent out are going to be organized here as well under announcements. So you'll be able to go back and see anything in there as well. For instance, just this sort of welcome message that I sent out as a test, just to make sure everything was working a couple of weeks ago. So any of those announcements can be found there, or any other announcements that I make for the course for whatever reason. I would spend a few minutes as well looking through this page on metacognition. Metacognition is a field that's dedicated to thinking about how people think. And as it applies to education, it's referring to the processes that people use to learn and how we assess our own learning and how we adapt and change if what we're doing isn't working for us. And so spend a little time, like I said, looking through this. I go by Marzano's learning taxonomy, similar to Bloom's, if you've ever seen Bloom's taxonomy or looked at that. But it's organized into levels of what we call cognitive control. So you see like the lowest level, for instance, retrieval, just plain memorizing things. And then all the way up to now using everything that you've learned to solve problems, to make decisions, to investigate. And so those letters that I showed you earlier, maybe, let's just go, for instance, to Unit 1 with our objectives. That's what these letters refer to here. And so C means that we are referring to the comprehension level. A U would mean the utilization level. And so these letters just give you an idea of the level of learning and the level of cognition required to sort of master that objective. It just gives you an idea for where things are at. So I would definitely take a look through this. I think it's pretty useful in looking at the field of how people learn and always be assessing what you are doing for learning, how you are learning. Because I guarantee that for a lot of you, what you have done in the past and what has worked in the past is probably not going to work for this course. And so you might think that you're doing well and then get to that first exam and it doesn't go well for you at all. And so it's going to be at that point where you're going to have to really think about, okay, what am I doing? And what can I be doing differently in order to succeed? That's what metacognition is all about. And with that in mind too, if we look under this CHY 113 prep, one thing that you will see in here are study skills. And one of the study skills is the metacognition page. But also Dr. Sandra McGuire gives a really good talk on metacognition, specifically as it applies to chemistry. It's about a 45-minute video, very, very useful. I highly recommend watching her video and taking a lot of what she says to heart as far as how you study and learn this semester. As well as Dr. Lobdell has this great video, and the title says it all: study less, study smart. Learn how to study efficiently and make sure that what you're doing is actually effective studying. And that should help you out as well. And then just a lot of just general study tips, general ways to help you succeed in the class. A couple other things in this 113 prep. One is just the textbook. Just at some point before class starts, go onto the textbook page, navigate it, look around, see how to find things, the table of contents, and really just get an idea for how the book is set up so that you're able to navigate it when we are live in the course. And then lastly, this math skills page. Like I said, we will be using math to solve a lot of different problems in this class. And you really do have to have a solid foundation in especially algebra and equation manipulation in order to be successful. And so Dr. Benedict put together this excellent math diagnostic assessment. And so I would go through this and try to answer all these questions to the best of your ability. And then after you go through it, there's an answer key down below. So for instance, question 1, the answer is A. You can see that here. But not only does it give you the answer, it tells you why that type of question is important for what we will be learning. And if it's something a skill that you feel you need to brush up on, she gives some great resources for you to be able to do that. So that's something else that I would do before the class begins if I were you. It will help really give you an idea of if your math skills are where they should be in order to be successful in the course. Last thing I just wanted to point out is on this landing page, this guide to communicating with your professors. Many of you are traditional first-year students, coming out of high school, and many of you aren't. But one thing that we do sort of find in general is that students don't always, how do I want to put this? Don't always communicate with their professors in as professional a way as we would always like to see. For instance, I might get an email that just the subject line is, hey, and then that's how the email starts out is, hey, and then just a question, maybe with no name signing off. That's really not how you want to be communicating with us. And I understand that a lot of this sort of communication gap, so to speak, comes from ways that you are used to communicating with either your high school teachers or just other people maybe out in the workforce. And so I would just sort of take a look through some of the things that this page talks about. Things like using the correct terminology. For instance, refer to me as Professor Staples. I actually don't have my PhD, so don't call me Dr. Staples. Professor Staples will be just fine. And then just some other do's and don'ts, some just things about how to communicate with your professors, how to email a professor. So like I said, in the example that I just gave, this is it's a good skill to have, with a good example here at the end of what would be a good email. And you can see, like, one of the things that I would highly recommend is that in your subject line in emails to me, always put CHY 113. It'll just give me a heads up, and I'll know that it's something coming from the class. Also, always send emails to me using your university address. Our spam filter is pretty good, and if you send it to me from a Gmail or a Hotmail address, something like that, it'll probably get through to me, but the spam filter might also grab it, and I might never see it. Anything sent from your university address will definitely come through. And so I would always use your university address when you're, not just me, but anytime you're communicating with any of your instructors or anyone on campus. And so again, this is just something to sort of take a peek through. so that you just have a better idea for how to communicate with us and better how to communicate with instructors in general. So, okay, that is all I wanted to talk about for now. Really, I just wanted to get this video out before classes started so that you had an idea for how things were going to go this semester and what we were going to be doing. If you have any questions as you're looking through things this week, don't hesitate to email me. I will get back to you as soon as I can. And other than that, the next time you will hear from me is your first official content lecture, which will be coming, I believe, on September 1st. So enjoy the rest of your week, and I hope everyone is having a happy and healthy summer. All right.